What's up everybody, this is Danny, and today I'm going to be doing the camera comparison between the Galaxy Z Fold 5 and the Galaxy Z Fold 6. So the full review on the Galaxy Z Fold 6 is coming up because it does feel like a different device, but I wanted to do a separate video on if the cameras are actually worth upgrading to or not, because technically it looks like the same camera system just with the new ultra wide. So we're going to see how much of a difference there really is. Let's do it. So let's start with the daytime pictures. I did a full camera comparison on the Galaxy Z Flip 5 versus the 6. So if you want to check that out, then I will leave that link down below so you can watch that after this video. So just like what I found with the new Z Flip 6, we see that new processing change to a more natural look versus the oversaturated and over-sharpened look. And while the differences aren't always drastic, I do like the direction that Samsung is moving in. I took a lot of pictures of people while I was in Paris for the launch, and I think this shows it best. You can see this 3x portrait picture of Enabong aka Bored at Work to have a little more contrast and be more color accurate. His shirt is more accurately exposed, so no blowouts like you see here on the Z Fold 5, and the skin tone is less orange, and in this picture you can see the skin tone improvement in both of us. You can actually see some slight variations in his tone which are more natural, and the reduction in sharpening is very noticeable on my face. The saturation difference can really be seen in this photo with my family and Michael Josh from Gadget Match. The extra shadow bump just gives the entire picture a better tone and accuracy overall, but I can see this being personal preference too, because some people like that heavy contrast that you see here, so let me know which type of processing that you like better in the comment section below. Just like I stated in my last comparison, I think that this will be a mix of people who will think that the new processing is actually worse, because a lot of users will associate a sharper and more colorful picture as a better picture. So I wouldn't blame you if you like Samsung's older approach better, so I think it would be in Samsung's best interest to give people a choice like many other manufacturers do, to pick a vibrant or vivid mode with more sharpening if you like that look, or keep that natural processing if you like to add sharpening or color to it later. Vivo, Xiaomi, and many others already have this, so I think this might be the best approach. So let me know what you think about that and if it's a good idea. After putting all these pictures together from Paris and London, if I had to generalize what you're going to see, if you have a Galaxy Z Fold 5, you might notice that a lot of times you'll probably get a brighter image on the older phone with more vibrancy, with an overall more sharpened image. And I have tons of examples of where this is true, but unlike the Galaxy Z Flip 5 versus Z Flip 6 where it was more predictable, this time it's not as easy to generalize the style of photo, because a lot of the times the Z Fold 6 creates the brighter image or even has more contrasty shots, and I noticed that in some of the portrait mode pictures. Like here with Jaime Rivera, you can see the Z Fold 6 actually has the brighter but more accurate image, but here the Z Fold 5 has the brighter image where the Z Fold 6 does a better job with highlight control, and you can see that pretty clearly here. So while I do think Samsung needs some work to tune this 50 megapixel sensor, I like the skin tone so much better, and even though there aren't huge leaps with this new 12 megapixel ultra wide during the day in terms of image quality itself, I did take it through Camden Market in London and snapped a few ultra wide shots there, and I couldn't see a huge difference most of the time, but once in a while you'll get these random ones where you can see how Samsung has improved on the processing over the years, but then sometimes you even see where the new processing just crushes the shadows too much. So there is some work to do here for consistency, but I think the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 3's ISP improvements made the camera experience faster. And I also wanted to bring up that while I was shooting a ton of video and photos out in summer heat, the Galaxy Z Fold 6 stayed relatively cool, but the Z Fold 5 got significantly hotter, especially when recording video, so that is something to think about. Even though these do have the same 50 megapixel camera, I had to test out the zoom. Right away you can see the color improvements on the processing of the Z Fold 6. This is 3x optical zoom, and then here is the 10x digital. They both look about the same, but again the color is so much more accurate to the scene without all of the oversaturation. There is the 20x, and you can see that the Z Fold 6 has a slight improvement here, but on this scenario nothing really drastic. And here is the maximum 30x zoom, so you can compare again the slight differences. I did take some more 30x zoom shots because I wanted to see if I could see a major improvement in different scenarios, and it does look slightly cleaner, but it's not something that I would be excited about. I think this is the biggest difference that I got, where it actually looks noticeable for sure. So you'll get some shots like that where it will make it feel like an upgrade, but most of the time it'll just be a wash at 30x. I saw most improvements at 3x and 10x levels. Again, here's the 3x, just so much better when it comes to colors. If accurate colors are something that you wanted from a Samsung device, then this is something that you'll be excited about. Shadows are much better here, less green being picked up from the environment. This zoom test here I think shows the improvements at its best. The 3x zoom just shows a cleaner shot overall, but where I can see the difference in this scenario is the 10x. Just look at how much sharper the writing is all around, and again the color is on point. Next up, I had to test the 50 megapixel mode. Both picked up a lot of detail, so it works well during the daytime. Punching in, it does look like there's an improvement, even though it does look a little bit more over sharpened. Take a look at the detail in that lock. That is impressive. Here's a shot of the iconic London Eye again, and you can see the color improvements. Punching in a whopping 1000% scale, you can see that extra sharpening on the Z Fold 6, so you can see little improvements here as well. We will end it with selfies, and the front-facing camera processing hasn't changed much. This is where you're going to get the most sharpening on both of the cameras, but the Z Fold 6 does it better with backing off that slightly. Just take a look at my forehead wrinkles here. The main sensor selfies look great on both, but check out the portrait mode here. The default blur is set the same, but it does definitely react different, and they both blurred out my wife. When the Z Fold 5 wants to oversaturate though, boy does it. It goes super wild on the orange skin. Here is one without portrait mode, and the Galaxy Z Fold 6 still is more natural. So while these are subtle improvements, it's wild what a processing change can do to make the camera feel fresh again. Daytime video is interesting because it seems to go backwards from the photo processing. It's brighter and it appears more colorful in some scenarios like this one, and it's a little less sharpened though, which I like to see, but I don't see any significant differences in the stabilization or video quality, so let me know if you do. This is near sunset, so you can see again slightly brighter video on the new phone, but when you jump into the 3x zoom, you can see that there are some slight improvements in clarity, and there's more shadow detail there as well. There's a lot of noise at the maximum zoom level, and they pretty much look the same, and the wide angle video looks similar as well. So if you're looking for a huge change in video, you aren't going to get it here. Nothing really beyond the minor ISP improvements of the newer chipset. In fact, sometimes the extra sharpness in the old Samsung processing makes the video look better sometimes. So I think this will definitely come down to personal preference. Okay, now that I covered most of the differences, let's jump into nighttime or low light photos, and this one might be confusing to some of you that are watching because this is where sharpness and brightness actually make a difference, and in some scenarios the older Z Fold 5 can look better, and it did surprise me sometimes. This 3x portrait in Enzo's hideaway really took me by surprise how much better the Galaxy Z Fold 5 was, and look at this portrait selfie. It is really dark in this restaurant, but the detail on my face definitely is noticeable on the Z Fold 5. Same thing with this group selfie on the main camera. I think it looks more natural on the older smartphone, and look at these ice cubes on the old fashioned that I had. I was so disappointed when I was looking through these pictures in this environment, so some tuning is definitely needed, but when I started to look at more pictures that I took outside, this is where I started to regain confidence. What I noticed is that just how much green the Galaxy Z Fold 5 picks up when you punch in, you can really just see how unpleasant that is. And until I started editing this video, I didn't know just how bad it really was. It's blotchy and it just looks so uneven in the sky. Now, don't get me wrong, this doesn't happen in every shot, but if I have this many to show you, then it's more than a coincidence. I almost feel like it wasn't this bad before, so I'm not sure what's going on, but I feel like it happens a lot more with night mode. So check this out. This is single snap and looks very similar, but night mode, boom, oversaturated with the greenish tone. And then look at this one, you can see some improvements here on the bar sign, so that is great, and they both look pretty similar. But then night mode, boom, weird colors in the sky. But I can't really overlook this. The Z Fold 6 about Thanos snapped this dude and he's blipped. I was able to repeat this so many times. Non-night mode, then boom, night mode. So I hope Samsung can update the Z Fold 5 to improve this for their users. But on the chances that they don't, you can see that the skin tone improvements move over to the night mode as well. I'm not sure what happened to the single snap on this ultra wide selfie on the Z Fold 6. The white balance is totally off, but the night mode looks more balanced on the Z Fold 6, maintaining the blue color on my shirt even though the sky is a little too blue. Here are some more examples of the sharpness being backed off on the new processing, and I personally like it because I can add sharpness later when I edit, and I do care about the accuracy of the colors at night, but I can see why others might think that this is a downgrade when looking at it, and I think you will notice it more if you're not using night mode. But if you're strictly just shooting night mode all the time, then sharpness is maintained on both phones. Now there is definitely less on the newer Z Fold 6, but I think it's sharp enough, and with a little bit of tuning, I think this will be a better camera overall at night. When using the main sensor, I didn't see much of a difference on speed with night mode, but when using the ultra wide, wow, the time difference is absolutely huge, about half the time, so that is a big deal. The ultra wide quality on both of them are nothing really to brag about, but night mode being half the time and producing a better image overall is something that I can definitely appreciate. Here is an ultra wide selfie with the cover display on, and the sharpness differences in processing can definitely be seen. Another huge improvement that I saw was with the 50 megapixel mode at night. Until I tested this, I didn't realize how bad that the 50 megapixel mode is on the Z Fold 5, look at the Z Fold 6, it looks much better. Here's that same scenario with the 12 megapixel, and yes, I know there's binning and all that, but this just doesn't make much sense. While the Z Fold 6 is pretty noisy on the 50 megapixel mode, it's nowhere near as bad as the Z Fold 5. The colors are just so out of whack, and it introduces some bad noise patterns in almost all of the 50 megapixel shots on both. So take a look at all this noise here in the sky on both of these smartphones, and then here is a single snap photo, the sky perfectly represented here with minimal noise, and then here is the night mode where the Z Fold 6 went too cold on the white balance. So that is something that I would like to see Samsung improve when it comes to the night mode shots. When it gets the white balance right like it does here, the Galaxy Z Fold 6 really shows potential with its improvements and really produces some nice photos. But then you look at this and see that the photo is too cold, but I guess I'd rather have that than the super oversaturated warm thing on the left, so they have some work to do. They even went backwards on my red Coca-Cola building test. Even without night mode, the red is represented better on the Z Fold 5. With night mode, it becomes closer, but the colder white balance on the 6 doesn't capture it as well. The 3X is pretty similar though, so that's nice to see. So I'll update this test maybe on Instagram and TikTok after a software update. But to sum things up at night, I think the majority of pictures, depending on the scenario, you will get better photos with the newer processing. You just have to determine if that's enough for you to say that it's an upgrade. So let's end it with nighttime video, and in some lighting conditions, the video doesn't look all that different, and that is expected, but they are both smooth here in this scenario, and there are no drop frames in 4K 30 frames per second. Nighttime video on Samsung is not really a strong suit for them, but I can see why they let the noise happen in the sky here. As you can see, it's pretty strong, but the rest of the video remains pretty solid here. In this scenario, it looks like the Galaxy Z Fold 6 is even picking up more noise, and there's more artifacting in the noise pattern when the lights are moving, so I would like to see that improved. But if you pay attention, you can see the Galaxy Z Fold 5 hunting for focus periodically, and that does not happen on the Z Fold 6, which is great. When you start walking at night in a dark environment, they both look too saturated. The quality is nowhere near where it should be with nighttime video, in my opinion, on both of these devices. And then when we go into the ultra wide video, the new 12 megapixel camera is bringing slightly more light in, but they are both pretty rough looking while walking as well. The micro jitters are seen all throughout when I'm taking steps. So this is something that I would like to see improve moving forward with the Z Fold series. And I had to test out the 8K video, and it is washed out on the new Z Fold 6, and that also needs to be tuned. It looks way more balanced on the 5. When you zoom in, it does get better, so I'm assuming this is an exposure bracketing issue, so nighttime video isn't the Fold's strong suit, so take that into consideration if you're thinking about buying this or maybe something like the Galaxy S24 Ultra. So I hope this video helped you make a buying decision, so let me know if this is an upgrade. Is this enough? I think during the day with the new processing and improved skin tones and more natural colors, it might be worth it, and to a certain degree at night the photos are better as well with smoother processing. But with it being so inconsistent, especially at night, I don't think this is a clear upgrade, but I expected that. But I wanted to show you what an ISP bump and processing changes can do to a camera system, so let me know if it was enough. Thank you for watching. Hit that like button if this video helped you, and I will see you in the next camera comparison.